How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them on line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them on line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Poe believed in me, pull up, threw some bucks down. Todd told the valet pull the truck round. Push the line up that we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best from my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas. If you can feel the static, you're too close, find your balance. Embed the revolution for they prohibition bandwidth. Blood trickle from the leaders he was planning. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. Bought at that flight to Amsterdam. When my accountant and minus my family found out too and didn't like it. You're not in the salon with Dale said and I thought he was biased. Then I got a Venmo that said copy the finest. Before my foolishness settled in. Recorded a whole tape before we got to Berlin. This close to giving up and now never again. Don't overlook the work and come expecting to win. In the end, my word, never put nothing over the squad. Got it right up under their nose and try the facade. Off the cliff with broken wings, I'm aware of the odds. Enough faith for us all, I'm the one for the job. Most days, catching sun rays, baby, look like the front page. Overthinking what they might say, have it your way. Yeah, the biggest threat is something they never seen. Dial it up, patch me into the screen. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up.
Peace, everybody. Peace and blessings. Happy New Year. It's Jackie Luqman in my pajamas. Just like I said I was going to do. Because, not putting any clothes on today. That's just, this is all we're getting on this rainy and chilly New Year's Day here in Washington, D.C. Happy New Year for those of you who observe such a thing. The New Year's is weird because people make a big deal about the new year. Like, woo, things are going to be so much better in the new year. And literally the only thing that happened was another day. Just like literally happened. So there's no magic in the new year. And I'm all for tradition. I'm full, cool with tradition. Tradition is wonderful. But this year I actually didn't do the black eyed peas and greens, which is an African tradition. Just because I didn't feel like doing anything, and I don't, I just feel like last year and the past few years was so weird. If anybody is still believing in luck, I don't know what's wrong with you. You can't be helped. But anyway, listen, I don't want to, start the year off on a down note because the Democrats have already done that. But first, hey Joel, saying hi to folks over on YouTube. What's going on, Joel Smith? Yes, weed is now legal in Montana, although it's not legal in some of the surrounding states. So be careful driving through, getting to Montana. Kai Watts, how you doing? Good to see you. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, through the YouTube link on Facebook, share this video. Please invite your friends. Those of you on YouTube, share the video, invite your friends. And those of you on Twitter, retweet this thing. And we're not going to be here for a very long time. We're just going to chat for a few minutes about the shenanigans that are already going on. 2021 is already showing you what's fitting to happen this year. And guess what? It's not going to be any different from last year. So first, I think I want to thank you all for watching our year-end kind of extravaganza that we did on Wednesday night. And we were really, really ambitious in trying to tie all of these disparate issues together, like the issue with the FISA warrants and impeachment and the Trump and Trumpism and a whole bunch of other issues, COVID-19 and how that impacted international policy and a whole bunch of other stuff. And we could have sat there and, talked for 4 hours trying to tie all of these things together, but we really wanted to make the effort to show that all of this stuff that people sort of glossed over, we wanted to hit kind of the things that people didn't make as big a deal about, but should have, because they were very, very important issues, and we tried to tie them together. Really successful in some things, not so much in others, but we appreciate that you all supported us and watched and really participated in the conversation. That was great. The chat was on fire, and thanks a lot for participating in that. So Easy D, what's going on? Lee Al, hi. So all right, let's get to and we will continue to have those kinds of conversations with folks like that, people who we have been fortunate to work with, our comrades, in the coming months in this year. Okay, so let's get to what's already going on in this new year. Now, on January 6th, Mike Pence is supposed to just do a procedural kind of opening the envelope to declare, to literally read the Electoral College votes and declare the winner of the election according to the Electoral College votes that have already been certified. And the votes from the contested states in the past election have already been certified by each state. Every state has certified the election results in all of these states. Several states have recounted their ballots more than once. Georgia actually recounted the ballots, I think, twice, if not 3 times. There have been just 40 plus lawsuits by the Trump administration that have all, with the exception, I think, of one, been thrown out of court. And I'm not sure what the one lawsuit is, but every lawsuit that the Trump team has filed in every court, including the Supreme Court, has been tossed out. I was watching CNN this morning, and some new Trumpista GOP senator said that, all of the lawsuits were tossed out on procedural grounds. It's actually not true. The arguments were actually heard. The arguments were heard in various courts, and all of the courts, including the Supreme Court, threw every single case out. And I think it's worth noting that many of the judges who decided on these cases that Trump brought were actual Trump appointees. So people were concerned earlier this year, oh my God, Trump, what's going on, Maurice? Happy New Year. Good to see you. That, oh my God, all of this, all of these judicial appointees that Trump is, he's flooding the courts, that he's doing this in order to stage a coup. But the judges that he appointed didn't go along with his baseless claims about a stolen election. So there's that whole coup language right out the window. And to the concerns that people have still about, Trump staging a coup, saying that, there are at least 140 and probably more GOP senators who will object to Mike Pence reading the Electoral College votes that have been certified with Joe Biden winning, 307 Electoral College votes. They're still not going to be able to change the election, to change the outcome of the election, right? So what happens in the Senate, and I'm only kind of sort of a little bit clear on this because this is an issue of Robert's Rules of Order. And because I'm the moderator of my church, I know Robert's Rules of Order. I hate them. They are onerous and a pain in the behind, but really this is just like a procedural thing where they go through these motions, the president of the Senate, who is the vice president of the United States, basically he's acting as like an Oscar presenter almost. And he's reading the results of a decision that has already been made and affirmed. Now, what will happen with these 140 or 150 or how many GOP senators who are saying that they will oppose or contest the reading of the Electoral College votes? All they're really going to do is add more time to the process, because I think what happens is, and don't hold me to this, but this is what I understand goes on. When a senator from a particular state opposes the reading of the Electoral College votes, they can't oppose all of the votes. They have to oppose the Electoral College votes of a particular state. So like the GOP senator from Texas can stand up and say, I object to the Electoral College votes from Pennsylvania. Then I think each senator gets like 5 minutes to lodge an objection. And then that objection has to be deliberated. So then the objection gets seconded. Is the motion, on the floor. And then the motion gets seconded. I think this is how it works. And then if the motion is seconded, then the president of the Senate, who is the vice president of the United States, can take up the measure, and then the measure has to be adjudicated. And by adjudicated, it means that people get to present evidence about, whatever. They have a discussion about their issue. So what this is going to do, I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I could be completely wrong, but this is the way I think I understand it, what these people are going to do is just add like a few hours to the inevitable declaration of Joseph Biden as the president of the United States, according to the results of the 2020 presidential election. Now, that does not mean that these people, these GOP senators doing this does not and will not have longer reaching political implications, because it will. In particular for the GOP, and in particular for those GOP senators who do not object to the electoral college votes being, certified or affirmed in support of Joe Biden winning the presidency. Those GOP senators who don't oppose these election results being read by Pence, they are going to be primaried by Trump's base. Watch. I don't think at this point there is any GOP senator who is not firmly and publicly in support of Donald Trump. I don't think any of those people are safe from being primaried by Trump's rabid, delusional, illogical, and I cannot say it enough, just flat out white supremacist base. Yes, even the black ones. Yes, even the Latinx ones, and I'm gonna call them Latinx because I can't call those people Chicanos. I just so really what is about to happen on January 6th is that 140, 150, maybe 160 GOP senators are going to delay the inevitable, but in delaying the inevitable in Joe Biden being declared the winner of this election and being the next president of the United States, they protect themselves from being primaried by Trump's base. And they stay in his good graces for whatever it is he is going to continue to do after he leaves the White House on January 20th. I don't believe that Trump is going to stay in the White House any longer than noon on January 20th when everybody else leaves, even if he has to be forcibly removed, because that really is a part of the Secret Service's duties. When Secret Service details change administrations, they they will install phones and all kinds of stuff so they can communicate with headquarters and other units of Secret Service agents in other places in the private residences of the people they're protecting. When they're done, they rip that shit out the walls. They rip that stuff out the walls. They're like, deuces, bye. It's true, we've never seen this before. Not in my lifetime, and I'm 53 years old. So anything can happen. I'm loath to sit here and say what won't happen. But as far as I understand the process to work, it is the Secret Service's job to escort the former president and his family out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as a new detail or another detail of Secret Service agents escorts the new family into that's the way I understand the process to work. Now, that's the politics of all of this. Trump is not going away. Neither are his supporters. The impact of Trump is being felt in the GOP right now, as there is a clear rift in the party between the Trump Republicans and the non-Trump Republicans. I think that's the best way to explain it. When you see, as I said, on January 6th, these 140, 150, maybe 160 GOP senators openly opposing an election that was not fraudulent at all. And what is this going to mean for the GOP? Like I said, a bunch of GOP Republicans who do not pledge their fealty to Trump on January 6th, they'll get primaried. Some of them will keep their seats. I think a lot of them won't. And what we're going to see in what we're going to see in 2021 is the ultimate culmination of the transformation of the GOP from the grand old party. Oh, I hate it when my ink pen loses. There we go. The grand old party, from the grand old party to what it will become, that I think started with the takeover of the GOP from the Tea Party, by the Tea Party during the Obama administration. And I remember back then, I don't know if you guys remember, that Democrats did not take the Tea Party seriously at all. Oh, we can appeal with them. We can work across the aisle with them. We have to have bipartisanship. And this is the Democratic Party that was led by the black guy who was saying this about people who campaigned on him being a secret Muslim, not born in this country, a communist, and called that man and his wife and his kids everything short of monkeys hanging from the tree. Well, actually, that some of them did call them that. And these people still felt like, these people meaning the Democrats and Barack Obama, still felt like we could work across the aisle with them. So the GOP transformation to the Grand Trump Party is very much the fault of the Democrats, not taking them seriously, not taking the Tea Party seriously when they began their grassroots political efforts to do exactly what they did to take over the GOP. And they were willing to lose the White House. Listen now. Remember, the Tea Party was willing to lose the White House. And willing to let Obama have 2 terms, as long as they could control Congress. So I think we are facing a situation very similar to that in the coming midterms, where, fine, as much as these GOP senators who are going to oppose this reading of the electoral votes on January 6th are doing this as political theater, they know that they're not going to win. They know they're not going to change anything. They know that Biden will be declared president, and they're fine with that. This is just, it's political theater to solidify Trump's base, to keep themselves politically safe, and to ensure that there is a foundational talking point for Trump candidates to primary non-Trump supporting candidates, so they can enact another red wave in Congress. And I think it might work. It might not work completely. I don't know if the Trump Republicans are going to take control of both the Senate and the House in the next midterms. But listen, whatever goes on in this midterm, in this special election in Georgia, please remember that this is a special election, and whoever gets elected, they still have to run again in the midterms. So I anything is possible with the GOP. What I think we need to be clear about in regards to the Republicans is that even with this fissure they have going on in their party, you're not going to see a bunch of Republicans, voting for moderate Democrats. That does not happen generally, especially not in the midterms. And remember that in midterm elections, Republicans always come out and vote more than Democratic voters do. Democrats have never been good at campaigning for down ballot races in midterm elections. We saw all those seats that the Democrats lost during the Obama administration because they intentionally told Obama that he was so toxic, the white people across the country were so mad at him that they told him, we don't think you should go out and campaign for folks. So the Democrats didn't campaign on anything, and they lost a bunch of seats. And I think they're about to do the same thing again. They are not going to focus on midterm elections like they should. I think they're going to have a bunch of really weak midterm candidates. They're not going to support the progressive candidates that will probably run. I hope there will be a larger field of progressive candidates that run in midterm races. The Democratic Party is not going to support those people. They're going to throw all their money on the centrist candidates who are going to campaign on recovering from Trumpism, recovering from Trump and stopping the spread of Trumpism, and they're going to lose a whole bunch of seats. The Trump GOP may not control Congress in the first midterm election, but I bet you it'll happen, and it won't be it'll be in the next round of I do think that there is going to be a GOP control of Congress. I hope I'm wrong, but this is the way things are looking to me right now. And a whole bunch of other folks have joined in. Before we go any further, I want to say hey to Phil Winter and Alex. And I'm reading your comments, Alex. Our condolences to you and your family on the passing of your dad. We are really, really, really deeply sorry to hear that your family has suffered that loss. And so you and your family are in, oh wow, our prayers. The Luqmans are just, that is devastating. I'm so sorry to hear that. And it's just crazy, y'all, that all of the political shenanigans that are going on and have been going on, we still have to deal with real life, and sometimes real life is really quite shitty. So having to deal with what these politicians are not doing to help us get through one of the most unprecedented crises in the modern history of this country. This is not something, COVID-19 is not something anyone who is alive today has experienced, because the last time anything like this has happened was the Spanish flu of 1919? So what politicians are doing now, Democrats and Republican, are, of course, they're not going to provide any further support, any more support to struggling people in this country in surviving a pandemic that they actually made worse. Let's be clear on what has happened with this coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic affected every country in the world, and some countries fared better than others. Some countries fared pretty horribly. The United States is at the bottom of the list of the countries. We have fared horribly. Why? Because the government of this country didn't take the pandemic seriously when it was known to be a problem. The leadership in this country lied about it, and can we please stop blaming just Trump for this, because plenty of people knew around Trump, and they were fine going along with his lie. So one of those people was Robert Woodward, the person who he said that he knew he was lying about it. He just didn't want people to panic, and Robert Woodward sat on that information until it suited him, until he could sell his book. So I hold him just as responsible for that lie as I do Trump and all of his advisors and people around him who knew about it, including the Democratic and Republican legislators who implemented stock trades when they were briefed about the pandemic so that they could make money off of the stock market that they knew was going to falter because the country needed to implement some type of public shutdown, of businesses, which most responsible countries did. Here's what other responsible countries did that the United States government did not do. Other countries provided their citizens monthly relief checks so that people could pay their bills, so that people could pay their rent and their mortgage and buy food. And in several countries that, ironically, the United States, the United States that has imposed sanctions on countries like Venezuela and Cuba and Iran, those countries, and China, and those countries went so far as to make sure that people had food. Make sure that Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro famously said, yes, we have to close businesses down, but nobody's going to lose a paycheck. And we're going to make sure that businesses are able to continue to pay people a portion of their salary. No business is going to go out of business. That happened in Venezuela. The country that the United States demonizes so much for being, it's an evil socialist cesspool. Nobody in Venezuela is facing an eviction crisis. But millions of people in the United States are. Nobody in China is sitting in long lines in their cars at food banks. Nobody in China is doing that. Nobody in China ever did do that. But in the United States, the capitalist utopia of the world. You see, China is supposed to be the evil communist country. And speaking of China, I do want to plug that we're going to have Danny Haifong on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, I think, to talk about the demonization of China and to get a few things straight about this whole yellow peril xenophobic attack, new Cold War attack on China that occurred or at least that ramped up in 2020. We're going to talk about that next Wednesday, so we hope you tune in. So yeah, there were no people sitting in their cars or standing in long lines to get food in China. We made the U.S. media made an enormous deal about the authoritarian crackdown that China imposed upon its people to stop the spread of this pandemic. But what they didn't talk about was the fact that the government of China, the Communist Party of China, made sure that people received monthly payments, that if people needed food, they got food delivered to them. If they needed medicine, they got their medicine delivered to them. People's needs were met during the quarantine, during the lockdown in China, by the government. So yes, in the beginning, China took that hit of locking down the provinces that were the worst hit by the virus very early. And the entire country took an enormous economic hit. But they just had, China in many places, I think most of the country, just had a massive in-person New Year's Eve party. They haven't had many cases at all, if any, reported in the past few months. Certainly no deaths. The United States, though, what are we at? 2 million cases? 2 million cases, positive cases of COVID-19 because of Thanksgiving. No, because of Christmas and Thanksgiving. 2 million. That was in one day, by the way. 2 million, I think. So, Venezuela, they're sharing vaccine technology with other countries. Russia, China, Iran, the World Health Organization is there. These countries, other countries around the world are sharing vaccine technology and sharing actual vaccines with other countries for free. Nobody's getting charged anything. For free. And these are countries that the United States government has demonized as evil, socialist, communist nightmares where, people, you look at the grocery store shelves and there's only one kind of beans that you can eat. But here we are in this country that's the richest country in the world, and it's supposed to be a capitalist utopia, and we can choose between 58 brands of toothpaste, but we have thousands upon thousands of people who can't afford any of it. And not just now, that has always been the case. China has actually just announced that it has eradicated absolute poverty 10 years ahead of the deadline they imposed to do that. Now, this doesn't mean that there are no poor people in China. Sure they are, because China has a mixed economy. This is another thing that the United States doesn't want to talk about. There is capitalism in China, so there are rich people in China. So, and the Chinese government is seeing the income inequality in their own society growing, and they don't like it. They don't like it, so they are going to address that. But they have already eliminated absolute abject poverty. And one of the ways they did that was to provide free housing for people living in rural, out of the way villages, and to either build factories near where they work, or if people wanted to move into cities where they could live close to where the jobs were, they could do that. That's what China did. But instead of eradicating poverty in this capitalist utopia that is supposed to be the United States of America, what this government has done was to deepen poverty and to widen it in creating this K-shaped economy, or K-shaped recovery, I guess, if you want to call it that, where people who had money already are making more money during this pandemic because the stock market is doing so well, and people who didn't have money are doing much, much worse. And there are now more people who have been plunged into poverty because of the way the government has not provided for the people during this pandemic. So COVID-19, so the K part, excuse me, the K part of this recovery, the bottom leg of it, is way fatter than it was before, and much longer. So it's a particular insult. It is a particular insult when Senate Democrats voted to override Trump's veto of the Defense Authorization Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, that $740 billion defense bill, and bypass a straight up or down vote for the $2,000 relief checks for you and me. Senate Democrats, including y'all's girl Kamala Harris, what? I mean, no disrespect to my friends who are members of Kappa Alpha, but I gotta tell you, that got on my nerves so much when people were like, "Ooh, we're gonna celebrate because the vice president is a graduate of Howard University." Okay, she's a neoliberal, warmongering vice president of Howard University who kind of hates poor people. And then it was, she's an AKA, she's a soror. That's lovely. She's a neoliberal, warmongering, AKA soror who hates poor people. and her vote for the passage, the overriding of the Trump's veto of the NDAA, her vote for that $740 billion for the Department of Defense, and not standing up for a straight Senate floor vote for that $2,000 for you and me, that just proves that everything we said about her before the election was right. Her and every other Democrat who voted for that bill, understand what happened. I think it was 41 Democrats in the Senate gave Mitch McConnell the votes he needed to just push that $2,000 amendment off to the side and pass the NDAA. So the Defense Department got their money before you and I got ours. That's their priority. I'm not even talking about the GOP. This is why we don't waste a whole lot of time talking about the GOP, because their game is obvious. They have never not been very clear about what their modus operandi is. They've never not been clear about where their priorities lie. And honestly, they've never not been clear about the fact that they really don't care whether you live or die. They don't care. They just want you to vote for them so that they can stay rich and keep telling y'all who to hate other than them. What? The Democrats, though, because people are just so, and by people, I mean progressives, just all of this, we can push Biden to the left, for real? You still believe in that? After the cabinet he just picked, there are a couple of promising selections in there, with the Department of the Interior and maybe the EPA. But everything else seems to be just like representational. Hey, look, the blacks should be glad that there's a black imperialist warmonger who is gonna head the Department of Defense. Oh, the ladies should be glad that there's gonna be a woman to head the Department of the Treasury. It's all of it is representational window dressing meant to silence folks as Biden continues the same neoliberal imperialist policies from the Trump administration that were continued from the Obama administration, that were continued from the Bush administration, that were continued from the Bush administration, that were continued from the Clinton administration. I mean, come on. So, now the Senate Democrats voted for the NDAA. This does not mean technically, I guess you could say technically, it doesn't mean that the Senate will never vote on this $2,000. But let me read you this kind of stuff, because this is the way these kind of people think. Yeah, I'm not gonna try that, because our tech has been it seems like technology is like, it's just like the bane of our existence. Every time we try to do something new and expand and do a little better, things just fall apart. So I'm not even gonna try to do anything fancy right now. I'm just gonna read this. This is an article in Newsweek magazine. It's an opinion from this person, Peter Roth. He's a Newsweek contributing editor, and he said, it's an opinion piece, he said McConnell's right. The $2,000 checks are a bad idea. You know what they say about opinions, right? The first thing this man says in his op-ed piece is, how much is enough? It's a question America is going to have to answer, and soon, lest the need for additional COVID relief packages overwhelm the nation's ability to pay for them. Then he goes into the national debt. And let me tell you something. These people who are questioning whether we should get one $2,000 relief check, crafting these arguments about how much it's going to cost and how much it's going to add to the national debt. They did not ask these questions when the Department of the when the Treasury, when the Department of the Treasury was giving the banks $7 trillion and committed to buying billions of dollars every month from the banks in bonds for the next 18 months. Nobody said how much is enough when it came to giving the banks money every month. What is that? I think it's like $200 billion a month. The Treasury Department has committed. They have promised to buy hundreds of billions of dollars in bonds to keep the banks afloat for the next 18 months, every month. And people, these folks have not said, oh my God, how much is enough? We cannot, the numbers don't add up. Because this is what this guy says in this article. He said, oh, as the numbers show, it doesn't work. He goes on to say that the Democrats would never vote for a measure that McConnell introduced that's saying, along with the $2,000 checks, then there would be the provision for the federal telecommunications law, Section 230, that would be eliminated. Excuse me. And to establish a federal commission to make recommendations to combat voter fraud. Oh, Jesus. At no point in the decades-long fight by grassroots activists, mostly because the Democratic Party has been, again, falling down on the job when it has been, in regard to the issue of voter suppression by the GOP. None of these people wanted to introduce any kind of legislation to establish a commission to make recommendations to combat voter suppression and voter fraud that was committed by the GOP. But when you and I are saying, look, now, $600 one time after 8 months of needing to be sequestered to some degree and out of work to stop the spread of this virus because Trump supporters are a bunch of plague rat monsters. I said it and I mean it. Who have created a situation where we have to still be in some measure of lockdown. None of these people ever said to anybody at any point during the, 34 million people that GOP voter suppression denied access to the vote. None of these people ever said we need to establish a commission to make recommendations on how to combat voter suppression when the GOP was doing it. But all of a sudden now that you and I are like, look, we need some money. We need our money back. We want our money back. Oh, now there have to be strings attached. Now we can't do it because, voter fraud, because Trump doesn't know how to lose, quite literally. That really is I don't even care about why people voted for who or who they voted for what. The issue with this voter fraud business with Trump and he doesn't know how to lose. He is a narcissistic, self-absorbed, self-centered, immature child. He has always been that way. He has never not been that guy. That's just the truth. And this thing with Section 230, no, I do not want these social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, the alphabet companies, YouTube, no, I don't want them censoring anybody's anything, because censorship is a slippery ass slope. It is. I do not want somebody coming onto my stream and saying she is criticizing Trump. She is an enemy of Trump, and we need to take her down. I don't want anybody to have that kind of power. I'm not for censorship. I understand there is some vile and disgusting stuff out there, but if you're not actively calling for violence against people, you can be as ignorant as you want to be. It's better for me to know how stupid and ignorant you are so I know who to avoid. I don't need Facebook and Twitter to determine for me who I should not be listening to or why. But most of the GOP didn't give a damn about Section 230 until people started pointing out how wacky these QAnon people were. But all of a sudden, we've got to talk about Section 230 when it comes to us getting one additional check of $2,000. So when I read the kind of stuff like this op-ed piece in Newsweek. And then the guy says that it's not that the money would go to families that don't need it. The economics of the distribution algorithm would allow families making several hundreds of thousands a year declared eligible to receive a check, perhaps for more than $2,000 depending on marital status and number of defendants. They don't need it, but as both Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi have many constituents among the caviar-consuming, designer ice cream, Louis Vuitton-carrying crowd who would qualify, it's a little surprised they're on board. Okay, first of all, this clearly Republican white man believes that the only rich constituents that exist are those who are constituents of Democrats, as if all of these rich ass people have not been throwing their money at Donald Trump for thanking him for his tax cuts, thanking them for the stock market. But come on, and can I just say, that the fact that rich people already have so many ways to keep almost all of their money that you and I do not have, and I say that as someone who actually has an LLC. We have a business, and we still can't keep most of our money. Because we've got this is how the game works. They tell you, yes, there are some benefits for that. You can write some stuff off, but we don't have any employees, so we can't write any of that kind of stuff off. We don't make profit above what, so we don't get those Amazon loopholes. We don't get Walmart loopholes. We're not millionaires. We don't get millionaire loopholes just because we have an LLC. So the idea that I'm supposed to be mad that some rich people are going to get another couple $1,000s that they get anyway, tens of thousands of dollars every year, all the time. Like, we're supposed to be mad at a few hundred, maybe a few thousand rich people getting some money that they don't deserve, and that is supposed to be enough to stop millions of people who need that one $2,000 check from taking it? Are you serious? But this is the way they think. This is the kind of excuse me. These are the kind of mental gymnastics capitalists have to go through to justify doing anything outside of the capitalist paradigm. And at the end of the day, that's really what this is about. This is all the capitalist system trying really hard, doing everything it can not to be ripped down to its studs by angry, impoverished, and people who are now at greater risk for their health because this government literally does not care if most of us live or die. And it's proven that the people who run this government, all of them, the Republicans and the Democrats, they are all a bunch of capitalists. I don't care if there's a D next to their name. They're capitalists. Who was it who said that? Oh, it was Elizabeth Warren. I'm a capitalist. We know. So let me look at some of the comments, because y'all been chatting over here. Intersectional imperialism. I love that phrase. I can't remember who came up with that, but that is so great. Just because, like, I'm not supposed to be angry at imperialism just because someone with some ovaries is behind it. Are you serious? A serial killer is a serial killer. What's her face? Warnos. She was did she not kill a whole bunch of people? Am I supposed to not be as appalled at her behavior because she's a woman? Goodness. One of the most prolific serial killers in this country, in the history of serial killers in this country, I think just died in prison. He was black. Am I supposed to be like, oh, well, he's a brother, so no, he's a serial killer who just happened to be black. So, look, a black man being at the head of the Department of Defense, he is an imperialist. He's a warmongering imperialist who is going to do as much damage and rain as much death and destruction down on black, brown, and other poor countries around the world as the white ones before him did. And he's got $740 billion now to do it with, while you and I still don't have that $2,000. David Otness, what's going on? Good to see you. The fascists won World War II. That's the biggest news to ever not come out of the 20th century. Just this whole Easy D said the stimulus bill the Democrats put forward is hilarious. Money to Pakistan for gender issues, also money to the Smithsonian Museum, and and I got to tell you, listen, I'm not mad that the government is giving money to the Smithsonian Institution. We need education. We need free arts and education. We need that. We absolutely do. So yes, please give money to the the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and PBS and the Smithsonian Institution. The Smithsonian Institution are museums that are funded by my taxpayer dollars, and I'm good with that. Because and there are absolutely disparities even in that, because you saw how much money black folk had to raise to get the Museum for African American History built. So there is the National Museum of the American Indian. They had to raise a bunch of money too. But I don't have a problem with. I do believe that the federal government should spend a whole heap of fucking money on on culture and education for the public good. Absolutely. Maybe if we spent more money on that as opposed to the Department of Defense, maybe we wouldn't have a country full of people, at least half the people, who are so stupid that they believe that putting a cloth mask on your face reduces your oxygen level and you cannot breathe. Therefore, it makes more sense for them to breathe all up in people's faces and pass along a virus that could kill people. I'm not mad that the government's giving money to the Smithsonian. Give them more. I mean, I don't understand the Pakistan gender study stuff. I don't know. But I also know that there's money in... I am much more angry in the money that is allocated for democracy efforts in Venezuela. You know that's regime change. You know that's more money for regime change in Venezuela. The Democrats are just, what I tell you, they are just as imperialist and warmongering as the Republicans are. The NDAA that was just passed contains a big chunk of money for the expansion of the cybersecurity infrastructure of the surveillance state. So it's awful convenient that there was this big alleged hack by Russia, right? Awful convenient that Russia allegedly hacked, I don't know, every agency that exists in the United States, and they've been hacking these agencies since March, and it's really weird. I'm really beginning not to have much respect for Russian hackers. Because if they have hacked all of these systems and they have been sitting around in these systems since March, this is what the allegation is that has come out about this alleged Russian hacking, widespread Russian hacking. They've just been sitting around, hackers just kind of breaking into the security and just messing around in the infrastructure of these agencies since March, and doing what? Doing what? Did they issue any orders electronically to implement to enact the Defense Production Act and compel a bunch of private companies to ramp up production of PPE so that we didn't have to have that whole mess of Russia didn't do that? Because they were actually doing that in their country. The Russian government provided that kind of stuff for their people. But the hackers from Russia, they didn't do any of that stuff. They had all this access to all of these U.S. agencies since March, and they didn't issue any extra money to anybody. They didn't reallocate any funds. They didn't do nothing. They didn't do nothing. Huh. Those hackers suck. I mean, that I just don't understand what is the point of hacking multiple agencies in another country, and you're just for months, and you don't actually do anything. You don't do anything. You don't change anything. You don't steal anything. But it's very interesting. And I think not coincidental, because there's no such thing as coincidence in general, and certainly not in politics. It's awful coincidental that there is a big section, a big allocation of this NDAA, this new NDAA, for the expansion of cybersecurity agency, the expansion of the cybersecurity. I think it's called CISA, and I can't. Cybersecurity Intelligence Service Agency, maybe that's what it's called. I can't remember what it is, but they're getting a chunk of money where they were like barely a line item in previous NDAAs. So, I think what is happening is that people are becoming more and more savvy to questioning where the money goes. Why is the Department of Defense getting nearly $1 trillion? Well, actually, they are getting $1 trillion a year, and more than that, because the NDAA is just a part of the defense funding. They get much more than that. So they really are getting like over $1 trillion every single year. Every year. But we can't get funding for museums. We can't get funding for public schools. We can't get funding. We can't get health care. let me stick a pin in that, because before I go, I got to talk about that. But yeah, people, and you know what they do when you touched a nerve, when the agents of the system have to demonize you and characterize you as an enemy of the state in order to shut you down. That's what this whole thing about, you can't question all this money going to Israel, because that's anti-Semitism, criticizing, supporting Israel. No, that's questioning what you're doing with our money. That's us asking, why is it that you can give Israel $500 million, but we can't get 2,000? There's nothing anti-Semitic about that. That's just, you know what that is? That's accountability. So in order not to answer the question, people who raise the question are made the enemy. And this is what this whole Russiagate business is. This is why people like me and other folks are called Russian bots. And what's going on, Stacy? I see you. And Miriam, I saw you up there. This is why, we're Russian bots and all this kind of business, because this is how they silence you. This is how they silence valid criticism of their actions. It's ridiculous. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is healthcare. Yes, there was this big old brouhaha. Oh my God, about people going after Jimmy Dore, and about him pushing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for a floor vote on Medicare for all. This has always been kind of my beef with the online progressive, whatever you want to call it, space. People make heroes out of folks because they have a platform and they got thousands of followers. And I mean, we appreciate that y'all listen to us. We really do. But please don't take everything we say at face value just because it comes from us. Because we are human. We can sometimes be wrong. And you can disagree with us. That's okay. That's fine. What you're not going to do is disrespect us. That's never going to happen in my nation. And there is going to be even less tolerance for it in 2021, because, we middle-aged, we tired. We don't have time for it. We don't have time to entertain foolish conspiracy theories and, just silly stuff. We don't have time for it. We're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for our liberation here. And we don't have time for people and their Twitter beefs and their personality beefs. And that's what that whole thing was to me. It was so ridiculous and it was so silly. And it was all in defense of a Democratic Party that, again, didn't have a problem giving the Department of Defense $740 billion, but doesn't even want to implement a floor vote to see who supports Medicare for all. They just don't want to have the discussion. And these are people, who spent, 2 years trying to impeach the president, Donald Trump, on some bullshit, bogus charges that they knew damn well were not going to work. The Democrats knew that they were not going to impeach that man. They knew that the Senate weren't going to vote to impeach him. They did all that foolish shit anyway for political reasons, for political theater. So how come we can't have a floor vote for Medicare for all for political theater? What the Republicans are about to do, what the Trump supporting GOP Republicans, GOP senators are about to do on January 6th in opposing Pence reading the Electoral College votes, that is political theater. They're not going to change a damn thing. They know this, but they are going to use the political theater to their advantage. Why can't progressives get behind doing that, using the political theater of a floor vote to their advantage? Because like I said earlier, those GOP senators who do not oppose Pence's reading and affirming of the Electoral College votes and declaring Biden president, those folks will be primaried. You don't hear a whole lot from the Republican base, not the politicians, the base, Trump's base. You don't hear them talking about, well, we can't, that's not a good idea for us to do that. No, they are sitting there thinking, yes, we are going to see who stands up for Trump and who doesn't. And the people who don't stand up for Trump, we coming for your job in the midterms. I don't understand why that's not a strategy that if we claim to be involved in politics, and if you claim you want to change the Democratic Party from the inside, which is bullshit. If you don't know by now that you can't do that, I don't know what else to tell you. But for those of you who still think you can, okay. But if you really believe that you can do that, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to use this to your advantage. It's political theater. No, it's not going to change anything. No, you don't have the votes to actually pass Medicare for all. So what? So much of politics is political theater. It is I don't want to say manufacturing, but it is it's directing the consensus of people. That's what a lot of what politics is, and the whole thing was just so ridiculous. People getting all in their feelings, and you can't criticize this one, and you can't criticize AOC. She's a woman of color. You can't criticize Jimmy Dore. Anybody can be criticized. People can criticize us. That's fine. But if our political ideas are off the mark and a mess, then that's a valid criticism. If you don't like my pajamas, that's okay. Buy me some more. Don't, because you don't know what I like in pajamas. Don't. I just got Mr. Luqman trained in what to buy me as far as pajamas are concerned. Don't you buy me. I don't like that fluffy terry cloth. I'm not that kind of chick. Nope. I'm a silk and satin lady. So, last year has been a mess. It's been an absolute mess. And I think it's been a mess mostly in the way those of us on the so-called left have responded to things. Like, our ideology is sort of all over the place. That's kind of the thing that I think I noticed more than anything else, We're still having this conversation about, is it class or race first? Are y'all serious? How the hell are you still having this conversation? Class is inextricably tied to race. They are both inextricably tied to racial capitalism. And the reason there is not a lot of unity or working class solidarity is because working class and poor white people are too easily convinced that black people and immigrants are their enemy. No, not all of them, but way too many of them for us to have a serious, cohesive, working class solidarity, like the Black Panther Party did with the Rainbow Coalition. That is why that coalition was destroyed by the government, That is why every labor movement in this country that was multiracial and multicultural was destroyed by the government. Because the system can't have us realizing that we are our natural class allies. And by us, I don't mean black people. We get this. Most of us do. I don't mean Chicanos. They get this. Most of them do. It's too many working class and poor white people who continue to believe what politicians tell them when those politicians say it's those poor blacks in the cities who are taking all the welfare money. They're all on welfare. They're all having a bunch of babies out of wedlock. And that's why your job at the factory was outsourced. Not that those politicians were the ones that outsourced those jobs, made those deals, outsourced those jobs. That's why. So yeah, we're still having this crazy conversation about, well, is it class? Is it race? And then in regard to the protests, you still got white people talking about, oh, you have to be nonviolent. Listen here. It is not the job of people who are fighting for liberation to convince you that, really, it's not our job to convince you of shit. It's not our job to convince you of anything. Either you see that this government has always been tyrannical and fascistic toward us and indigenous people and other working class, poor and oppressed people, or you don't. You either want to stand with people fighting for liberation or you just don't. All of these caveats that people have to have before they join in to support people who are fighting for liberation is crazy. It's a put off. It's insulting. It's very privileged of you, and we are so sick of hearing it. Oh, I would join your protest, but I don't know. You have to declare that you're nonviolent. No, I don't. Not in a violent system, I don't. Not in a system that every single day imposes some kind of form of violence against me and people who look like me. No, I don't. I have to declare nothing to you. Ugh. And then there's the whole celebrity thing, which, oh, Jesus, we just don't have time. I don't have time to go into everything that has just been extra ridiculous in 2020, because 2020 was extra ridiculous. It really was. But I think, as I said Wednesday night, I think 2020 had to happen. Abdus and I said that when Trump was elected, when we saw, because we knew who Trump was, and we kept telling people, he's a monster, he gonna beat y'all. And the Democrats are like, oh, we have to give him a chance to govern. We want him to succeed just like every president. And we're just like, yeah, no, you don't. But, okay. Phil Winter said, please do a show on us being a sad, groupie nation. It is a mess. We are a sad, groupie nation. Good Lord. Even when you look at Trump, yes, it just 70 million sad, psychotic, illogical, white supremacist, racist groupies. That's what they are. And then on the other side, 76 million sad, illogical, ahistorical, neoliberal loving, having faith in the austerity pushing Democrats groupies. And then there was the whole Ice Cube thing that, yeah, we will do a show on that, Phil. We will. But we said early on that Trump had to happen. He was the inevitable conclusion of centuries of bad, just horrendous anti-human policies that every administration that has ever governed this country have implemented, and folks just, went along with it because lesser evilism, right? And we're all indoctrinated into this American dream myth. We all want the American dream. We all want to be capitalists, but we broke. And we don't understand that the only capitalists in this country are the rich people. They are the only capitalists in this country. The rest of us are indoctrinated peasants. That's what we are. But, yeah, I mean, 2020 had to be as bad as it was. I'm glad it wasn't worse. But it had to be as bad as it was to wake some people up to just how horrible this system really is. If Trump had not been going on this, I guess it's a chaotic crusade to overturn the election, would this many people be paying attention to the actual electoral process? Even though we meaning black people, have been talking about how horrible the electoral college really is, its roots in slavery, what a mess it is, why we need to get rid of it. We've been talking about that for decades. But if Trump hadn't happened and he hadn't been trying to overturn this election, would you be this concerned about the electoral college and wondering what's going to happen on January 6th? Before Trump, most people didn't even know anything of substance happened on January 6th. Most people figured we vote, we elect the president. Ta-da! And that's not the way this system works at all. And that's horrible. It's horrible that that's not the way the system works, but it's also horrible that we didn't know. Most people didn't know that's not the way the system works, and it took Donald Trump to expose that. So that's our approach. That's what we are. That's how we're looking at 2020. It was a necessary evil. It was a necessary evil to prepare us for the struggle to come. Because 2020 introduced a whole lot of new people into this struggle against this system. So we have to be a lot more intentional in paying attention to the systemic issues as opposed to the isolated issues, the personalities, and our favorite politician, or our favorite commentator or talking head. So that's what we're going to do more of in 2021. We are going to try very hard to pay more attention to the systemic issues: capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, patriarchy, white supremacy, defining things, explaining how these concepts look and work today, and what we can do to fight against them. And so, yeah, that's what our focus is going to be, hopefully, mostly in 2021, because that's definitely what our work is going to be. That's what we're going to be doing in our everyday lives. So every weekday you will have a chance to hear me and my co-host Sean Blackman. Excuse me. My co-host and comrade Sean Blackman on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik. Excuse me. That's every weekday. And then my monologue gets posted every day to Spreaker. And then we're going to try to do a live stream at least twice a month rather. I try to say twice a week and set us up to be exhausted again. Twice a month on specific topics. And, you can support us on Patreon. We will have special patron-only broadcasts that we hope that our patrons will enjoy. They're special treats for supporting us. We really, really appreciate all your support. So look, I've been on this long enough. I've talked long enough. I'm hungry. No, I did not make black-eyed peas and greens. I'm just going to go upstairs and have me a bologna sandwich and watch some bad movies and enjoy the rest of this weekend, because come Monday, the work begins anew. So, thank you all for joining me. Stacy P. Hey, we see you. Neil Sanger, how you doing? Excuse me. Leah, what's going on? So glad that you could join us. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, Coffee, Current Events, and Politics in Luqman Nation. Follow us on Twitter, Luqman Nation, the #1, no spaces. And always, more more meaningful now, I think, than it has been in the, 3 years that we've been saying it. We say to you, peace, if you are willing to fight for it. Y'all take care. Hey, look at our patrons.
I had them online before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them online before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Poe believed in me, pull up through some bucks down. Todd told the valet pull the truck round. Push the line after we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed